to where we are sort of today, right? It's been a long, I'd say about 10 years now. I don't know if folks do remember in 2008, there was a huge casino debate in Rexdale. At the time, it was called Woodbine Live. This U.S. company was contracted to build a new casino facility in Rexdale. And this is at a time where there was a high unemployment in the area, a large need for jobs and opportunities for local residents. So in Rexdale, community residents, also labor coalitions came together to push back against this developer and also the City of Toronto to say, if you're going to be putting a casino in the heart of our community, we need to ensure that there's good opportunities, jobs, unionized jobs for local residents, but also opportunities for businesses and also other amenities for the local neighborhood. This work was very important in terms of sort of starting the grassroots movement of community benefits in the City of Toronto. As you may know now, that project fell through in 2011. The U.S. company Cordish fell under financial hardship during the recession, and they were unable to go through with the project. However, I'll talk in a few moments. I'll talk a bit more about the Rexdale campaign. So in 2015, the Toronto Community Benefits Network began serving 6 targeted groups: youth, women, urban Aboriginals, racialized peoples, veterans, and newcomers. Our main goal is to advocate for community benefit agreements, and this includes good jobs, economic opportunities for the community through investment in infrastructure and urban development. Some of the programs that we focus on include apprenticeships, so mainly focusing on those 6 target groups, but also professional administrative technical jobs, because we know there's not only apprenticeship jobs, there's also other professional administrative jobs that are tied to the construction industry, whether it be in the design phase or whether it be in the operation phase as well. There's also other programs including social procurement, so opportunities for local businesses to also benefit from these infrastructure investments, and then also neighborhood and environmental improvements. So looking around like the local neighborhood, discussing with residents, building a common understanding amongst residents that if a certain infrastructure investment is coming to the neighborhood, there also needs to be a focus on looking around the surrounding neighborhood and around how that developer or that development can integrate well with the local community. I just want to go through a quick map sort of showing the sort of poverty increase in sort of the inner suburbs across the City of Toronto. So as you can see, in 1981, the inner suburbs fairly middle class, and then just in 2006, we've seen a large increase of low-income families, especially in some of the pockets of the City of Toronto, some of the inner suburb pockets of the City of Toronto. And you could see Rexdale's pretty much right over here. So what are community benefits? So community benefits are legally binding agreements either between the community, the City of Toronto, and a project developer. Some of the commitments that are included in community benefits include local hiring, social hiring, procurement opportunities for local businesses, but also businesses from racially diverse communities. Oversight by community throughout the project life cycle, so ensuring that not only is the community involved in the negotiation of a community benefits agreement, but also seeing through the implementation of that agreement. And then there's also mechanisms for enforcement, so monitoring and also evaluation metrics to ensure that whatever commitments are made, they're followed through upon. So this slide is just a quick snapshot of some of the more recent projects. I know we heard in the video about the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. So that was the first community benefits projects ever in the city of Toronto. The project was valued at $5 billion, and it's a 5-year project. Some of the community benefits that were included in that were hiring of apprenticeships, so 10% commitment that all apprenticeships would come from either local youth or youth from racially diverse backgrounds. And this is a common thing that we've seen amongst all of the 3 projects, is that there's been commitments of 10% apprenticeship opportunities. There's also, more recently, as Rosemary discussed, the Woodbine Casino expansion. And this was a 19-year project. The provincial government contracted a consortium to operate the Woodbine Casino. And just recently, in May, there was the first ever community benefits agreement that was signed between the City of Toronto and that consortium. And some of the community benefits that are included for this project include 20% local hiring. There's also a 20% social hiring. So in total, 40% of all jobs at this facility will either be local hiring or hiring of people from diverse backgrounds. There's also a commitment for 10% local and diverse procurement. So local businesses, also diverse businesses, will also have opportunities over the next 19 years to be able to bid on certain opportunities at this facility. And then there's also some of the neighborhood environmental improvements, right? In Rexdale, there's about a 24% childcare coverage rate. That's in conversations with the community, that was one of the biggest barriers for people actually accessing work. And one of the biggest, sticking points in the negotiation was to tell the developer to say, like, we know that you're committing these jobs, but if we're not removing some of the barriers for people actually getting into these jobs, then we're not really doing our job. So getting that $5 million investment to be able to build a childcare facility in and around the neighborhood, we're hoping that can also be able to facilitate for some of the workers at this facility is really important. And then there's also the good job piece, right? So not only have we gotten commitments around the local and social hiring and commitments for those, but also what type of jobs are they, right? So we got a 50% commitment that all the jobs would be full-time, because we know in entertainment industry, it's quite precarious work. And then more recently, one of the first community benefit pilots. So the Ontario government has announced there's going to be 5 projects across the province of Ontario that will include a community benefits pilot. So the framework that we've seen with the Eglinton Crosstown will also be applied to all 5 of these pilots. And one of them coming out of that is the Finch West LRT project, which is getting started fairly soon. That project is valued at $2.5 billion, and it's another 5-year project. And then also similar commitments for the local community, for community benefits for that project. I just wanted to go quickly through a quick snapshot as to some of the successes of the Eglinton Crosstown. If folks want to see some of the major highlights in terms of working with the local community, we've got $5 million spent on local businesses along Eglinton Avenue. We've also seen certain issues that or that community has brought up through this project, specifically Little Jamaica and some of the businesses there that have had to either close down their business temporarily or some even full-time, just because it's really hard for people and for residents to be able to go around and actually go to these businesses. This is some of the hiring commitments to date. So as of September 5, the community benefits commitments at the Eglinton Crosstown has gotten 217 people or local and racialized people into these jobs. So it's great to see that that we have tracking mechanisms so that we're able to see exactly how successful this is and how we can continue to apply this to other opportunities and other projects. Just in terms of community benefits policies, so there's policies across multiple levels of government. So the City of Toronto has 2 policies, or they currently have 1 policy and currently are working on another. So they currently have the City of Toronto Social Procurement Policy. And also this currently working on a City of Toronto community benefits policy. So in the near future, the City of Toronto will have its own policy that will be able to identify certain projects over projects over a certain threshold that will need to include certain community benefit commitments. The government of Ontario has the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act, which came out just after the Eglinton Crosstown framework. That requires certain bidders that either construct or maintain their assets to have community benefit commitments in their, which is actually in their project agreement. And then just recently, the federal government has its own, what they call community employment benefit policy, and that only is specific to sort of local hiring. So looking at some of the large infrastructure projects that are federally funded, and then seeing how those contractors can look locally to see and target certain groups of that have been underrepresented in sort of the construction trades in those local communities to see how they can provide opportunities for those communities. And then just some of the future projects in the City of Toronto. So I talked a bit about those pilots. So the community benefit pilots at the provincial level, they have committed to community benefits for the McDonald Block reconstruction. McDonald Block is where staff at Queen's Park, staff of the Ontario government work, and they're going through a large redevelopment project there. There's also another redevelopment project at the West Park Health Center, which also has community benefit policies or community benefit commitment there through the pilot project. And then lastly, the Metrolinx Go Transit project. So Metrolinx has committed for all some of their Go Transit projects. They're going to be including community benefits for that. And then, yeah, just like sort of some of the key differences between some of these projects we've seen between like sort of the Metrolinx model versus the Woodbine model. So the Metrolinx model was a signed agreement between community partners and the project developer. The Woodbine Casino agreement was signed between the City of Toronto and the City of Toronto and the developer. And this is just because the City of Toronto has planning requirements that they included to ensure that if the developer was to get the rezoning, that there were certain requirements that they had to meet, and they've also registered that onto title. And yeah, just lastly, sort of the CBA negotiation process. So sort of how do we get to from start of like working with the local community till the end of actually getting a signed community benefits agreement. And it always doesn't have to start at the top and go around. Like for the sometimes like for the Woodbine, we started with organizing with the community and then went straight to activating the local City of Toronto because we knew the City of Toronto had the planning tools to be able to require the developer to meet these requirements versus the Metrolinx, where we directly engaged with Metrolinx or with that project. We engaged with Metrolinx there. And yeah, if you have any more questions, I know it's fairly brief, so I've been trying to go through a lot of information in a very brief amount of time. But I'm free to go through some finer details if need be. Thank you.